And welcome back to another episode of Space Explorers, the show funded by the UK Space Agency, where we're playing games that are in space, and we're talking about space as well, real space with real scientists. I'm not one. However, he is. Joined, as always, by Professor Lewis Dartnell of Westminster University.
Lewis Kerman for this
Lewis
episode.
Kerman, sorry. Yes, we are
Seb
playing Kerbal Space Program. So I am Seb Kerman. Lewis Kerman. Lewis, who are we also joined by?
Today we have Abbie Kerman,
Yes.
who works at Airbus.
Yep.
Well, in fact, do you want to tell us a bit about yourself, Abbie, briefly?
Okay, I'm a spacecraft structures engineer. I work for Airbus.
Can you say that again slowly?
Spacecraft structures engineer.
That sounds massively
That
exciting.
is cool.
And at the moment, I'm making a Mars rover.
That is
Where do we
extra
go from
cool.
there?
I don't know.
So we'll talk a lot more about what
Yeah.
you do kind of on a day-to-day basis a bit later in the video.
Yeah.
So we should probably get started on the game.
So we're playing Kerbal Space Program, and if you've never heard of this game before, it's a game basically where you're in charge of the full space program of the planet of Kerbin, and we are going to be trying to get to space. We're playing in the sandbox mode, which basically means we've got access to all the parts.
We'll make it easy for ourselves.
We're gonna cheat.
And in fact, if you pan around this vehicle assembly building, we can see exactly who's been sponsoring. There you go, UK
There you
Space
go.
Agency.
There you go.
Thanks, guys. So it's a build your own spacecraft physics simulation type game. Isn't it?
Yes.
There's lots of components, lots of things you can try and do.
Yeah.
1,000,001 ways you can fail spectacularly and amusingly. And we are going to try some of those ways. We're going to try and make a rocket from scratch.
True. And to be clear, there are a lot of videos on YouTube on how to play this game really well, on how to do things. We're not doing that. We're taking the game and using it as our platform to test real life, rather than say this is how you play Kerbal really well.
So where do you reckon we should start then, Abbie? What is your basic entry-level vanilla rocket that we can start with for level 1 of Kerbal?
Okay, well, probably you need some kind of crew module.
Yeah, that makes
thing
sense.
That you're going to actually
There we go.
take into space with you.
Okay, crew module number 1.
Excellent.
Purchased.
And then a solid booster is about as simple as it gets.
And a solid booster. Okay, we can do that.
So what's solid about the booster? That's the fuel that's in it, I guess.
Yeah, basically it's just a firework. You light it,
Okay.
fire comes out the bottom, you go up.
So
Is the
this
idea.
is just firework chemistry.
Yeah.
You light the taper at the bottom.
Sounds like we're not talking about a lot of control here.
No, there's absolutely zero control with a solid booster. You just light it and it goes. You can't stop it from burning once it's lit. You can't change the direction.
You're putting a lot of faith in
Yeah.
this. I think it's kickback or nothing.
Yes.
I mean, go big or go home, right?
Or go
On your
Kerbal.
first-
I
on your
believe that's
first
what they
try.
say. Go big or go Kerbal. So if I just place that there...
Wow, that is huge.
Is it too big even to go underneath
Well,
your...
we
Does
just...
it actually fit in the satellite assembly hall?
There we go. So if I put that there, that's attached. And I think we can agree that that is a perfectly reasonable...
It looks
It looks
rockety.
like a
rocket.
rocket. Yeah. You could give them a parachute, but probably
To
that's
get
just
back
a
down again.
placebo for them to think about while they're dying.
2 of those and one of these.
Okay.
So
See what happens.
I think we're going to survive this. I suppose there's nothing for it but to launch. So let's go.
Like the touch paper.
Oh,
What have you done there?
Or the parachutes.
Is there a reason all of our parachutes are coming at the same time? And in fact, we're flying our rocket through the bottom parachute.
but Jebediah still pretty happy about
He's
it.
looking a wee bit grim there
Yeah.
as he wheels round. Can we cut
let's
free
see,
of the parachutes?
Let's see what it looks like from his
Yeah,
perspective.
I'm feeling sick
ground.
just watching that.
Oh.
In fairness, he survived it. He hasn't died. I think he had no right to walk away from that one.
And he is walking.
Let's
Wow.
plant a flag for our very first. That's not a
He
success.
must have got
it's
about,
not a
what,
failure.
6 metres from the launch site?
He almost cleared the tower.
There we go.
Hey!
There we go. Now, I think that we had a couple of basic design issues with that.
We've learned our lessons, I hope.
Yeah.
Yes.
Basic flaws.
confident
Yeah.
that we can't possibly fail badder than that the next
Yeah.
time.
I mean, I'm going to say that our Kerbal survived.
Yeah.
So
He walked
that
away from
wasn't-
it.
Yeah. But
So we can do worse.
yes, we could do worse. We did have parachutes. I'm keeping the parachutes.
The parachutes were good. Let's maybe not set them off at the
the
moment of
same
launch.
time
No.
of
So we can time those. We can trigger those when we're at our highest point rather than
Yes.
the bottom.
I think that's smart.
But what else could we do, Abbie, for kind of moving beyond just a single solid rocket thruster to something with a bit more oomph that we could reach orbit with?
Yeah. Okay. So solid rockets pretty good for getting you up there fast, but you have absolutely zero
Yeah.
control. So if you want to do something that lets you actually point in a direction of your choosing, really, it's all about liquid propellants. So with those, we have an engine, and we can point what direction we want the thrust to
So
come
you're
out.
literally going to just move your nozzle around in different directions to help steer
Yeah,
the
and you can
rockets.
also throttle it forward or back, so you can adjust the amount of oomph that's coming out of the bottom at any given
And
time.
save a bit of oomph for when you really need it.
Absolutely. So we can have our solid rockets that kind of get us a good way up, but then you actually need to be able to point in the direction you want to go in. So that's when the liquid comes in.
Okay. And I guess another thing I vaguely understand about rocketry is that you use staging as well. You don't just have everything on great big single rockets. You have
Yeah,
smaller
so
stages that
basically
you
the
can
point
then drop.
is that you don't want to carry the entire rocket body with you up into space because it just weighs too much and it will drag you down.
Yeah.
So you want to be able to, as soon as your fuel tank's empty, get rid of it. As soon as you've used up your solid boosters, get rid of
just
them.
dump the weight
Just-
and go
Yeah.
onto space with
So
a
that
lighter
you end
load.
up with a much smaller capsule that's actually going
Okay.
into orbit.
So I think what we've got here is, this is a 3-stage rocket. We've got a
Yes, it is 3 stages in the sense that we've got our main engine with 2 fuel tanks to support it, into stage 2, which is a smaller tank and another engine that's going to take us hopefully into orbit, and then our third and final stage is just the crew capsule
And
at the top.
can we put some solid rocket boosters on the side for a bit of extra
Yeah.
assistance?
That's a fairly standard thing to do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's attached.
That'll do.
that's
Yeah,
attached.
close
I mean,
enough.
it's not particularly aerodynamic. I could add a little...
Let's pop a cone on top.
Okay.
Or maybe let's give them their own individual parachutes.
We could do that.
And we can then recover them as well.
Genuinely, we can do that.
Make it so.
There we go. So there's a little parachute for each of them. Now, over on the right-hand side here, we've got the staging platform. So this is where we're going to choose in what order things are going to go off, as you were saying before. So it goes in reverse order, so that the final stage is always setting off the parachutes to save you. So we've got our main engine and our solid rockets. Then they detach and parachute down.
Yep.
Then we detach again, and shortly after that I can fire our next rocket, which will then detach up there as we keep going up, detach, and finally deploy our parachutes for a
Sounds
safe landing.
good.
Excellent.
So
to the launch pad.
I genuinely think this is going to work. I have true confidence. Should we just assume that it's going to be fine?
Yeah.
I'm going to give us about 2/3 throttle on our main engine, and obviously our solid rockets are just going
Full whack.
They're going full whack. So let's hope for the best. Jebediah looks happy and confident. Let's kick this off.
That makes one of us.
Yeah.
And he is the important one here. Let's
Absolutely.
be honest.
I mean, it's not quite the tilt back technique. Oh, so our solid rockets are done. Ditch them. No, they blew up.
Right. we did try.
We
to
were
give them
going
parachutes.
much too fast. I'm afraid to save them. Our altitude is currently 13 kilometers. So we're continuing up. On the map, we can see that currently our
Lovely little parabola there.
that's going up, which is encouraging. However, we are currently going quite straight up.
Yeah.
So I feel like maybe we want to think about tilting over a little bit towards
So
the
talk us
horizon.
through that bit,
Well,
then,
so
Adam.
you
Why
can
do rockets
see
not
the
just go
arc.
straight up?
You can see where you're going up and where you're going to come back down again. And at the moment, because you're going so straight up, you're basically going to turn around and go straight back down again.
Yeah.
If you tilt over to the side, that parabola extends out, and that's how you eventually get into orbit, when the parabola extends so high that it misses
But essentially
the Earth.
follow round the curve to the Earth.
Yeah, so you fly up, and then when you fall, you don't fall back into the Earth. You just keep falling
keep
off
on
the
missing it.
side of the Earth.
So roughly what altitude we would need to achieve before we could say we kind of made space?
I think 60 miles is what we
Okay.
consider to be space.
Okay.
So it's about 100 kilometres. We're at about 52, so about halfway there so far.
give it the full guts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So now we're cranking it, and we're about to run out of fuel. Not too long.
Oh,
We've run out of that.
Get rid of that
ditch
stage.
Fire them
Fire
out.
the
fire.
next one.
Currently still at full throttle. So let's see where we're at now.
It's getting better.
So we're at 91, creeping up very, very quickly to 100. So I'm
we're
gonna
basically in space, but we're still going to plummet back down
Yeah, so we need
to the
to-
Earth. So we need to tilt over more.
So at the moment, what I've done is I've switched off our engine so that we're just going to coast up to 100. And when we get to 100, I'm going to do another burn. I'm going to see if I can
See if we can just clip it over the top.
just keep us going all the way. So where are we? Here we go. Just chilling. Turn to open. I won't do an EVA just yet, but I will do one, definitely. Actually, no, I am going to do one right now.
If you can get back in time before we fire the next burn.
We're in space. We're legitimately
Gemini
in space.
is in space.
I'm not going to let go, though.
Can you make him wave?
I don't want to.
Because we don't want to let go and then not be able to reach
I'm
the
going to
door
make him
again.
get back in because
All right.
I'm too afraid. But there we go. We're coasting. I would call what we've got there legitimate
Okay,
space.
so we legitimately made space. I guess the next step is to try to legitimately make low Earth orbit as
Yeah.
well.
Okay.
The International Space Station's kind of 400 kilometers, something, so quite a bit higher than
somewhere
we are at the moment.
between 200 and 400.
Yeah.
They like to try and keep it. Anything below that, you get a bit of residual atmosphere, which slows you down, and then you start falling back
Tiny
down.
amount of
Yeah.
resistance that
Yeah.
drags you down.
I'm noticing
so we
a
are re-entering a little
small
bit.
problem here in the sense that we're kind of re-entering the atmosphere. I'm going to go
Without any
retrograde and
control?
try and save us if I can. We are currently going quite fast.
So you're trying to slow us down
I am trying
by
to
firing
sla-
backwards.
I figure at this point our safest bet is just to try and safely
Come back
land.
to Earth.
I don't know how likely we are to explode. None of this stuff is heat shielded, and that is a giant. That's a giant tank
And there's
of fuel.
an enormous amount of flame coming off our
It's
fuel.
alright, there's not very much fuel left in it, so.
No,
There
no.
is the bright side. That is a
No.
silver lining. You're right, Abby.
So we're more likely to burn to death rather than explode to death.
at least
So,
we'll go quickly, eh?
Yeah, we're on vapors now, and it's gone.
And we're cutting out.
So then
Ditch
we
it.
jettison that.
Okay.
Just got a little crew capsule. We do have parachutes left.
We
so
do.
As long as this doesn't burn up, he could
Do-
potentially still survive.
What's a good speed to let out a parachute?
I'm going to
You know
go.
what? I reckon we
that's
should perhaps be asking these
too
questions
fast.
before we launch rather than when we're re-entering quite rapidly.
Well,
I mean,
yeah.
I don't
Basically,
think I've
when you're
ever-
hypersonic,
Yeah.
probably it's a bad idea to launch your parachute because it's just going to tear itself to shreds. We seem to have
but we've stopped
slowed
burning.
down enough that we're not burning anymore. That's
we're
a positive
still
progression.
17 kilometers into the air.
So we're kind of 8 kilometers now. I think we've stopped slowing down on our way down. We're about, 240?
Yeah. So I think maybe now.
Yeah, now is as good a time as any, I think, and just hope it doesn't rip itself apart as we deploy too fast.
We are slowing down.
No, I think we might have got away with this.
I'm going to get him to do an EVA.
Because why not?
He gets a bit of you on the way down.
Oh,
Oh.
okay.
So
That was
he's
maybe
got
a
a
little bit
parachute as
low.
well, right?
I don't know. Does he? So he's going quite quick.
He's quite enjoying it.
He's one last-
Oh, I do have an EVA propellant. How do I deploy the propellant?
Might maybe work this out quite quickly.
Oh,
No,
is
No.
he fine? No, he's dead.
he's not.
He's
not. He's about to get crushed by his own capsule coming after him as well. So we're going to try one last time and improve on the last
Try and get a
last
clean
effort.
orbital insertion.
Clean launch into orbit. So this time we've got 4 solid rocket boosters.
Oh, we're
We're kind of
leaning
tilting over
over
a little
already.
bit. But
Yeah.
I mean, you could start early, I suppose, if you like.
I
And
mean, I
we've
was
got
getting a little ahead of myself.
little ego beaver. We've got 3 stages on the main rocket this time, all with liquid propellant and solid rocket. And rocket thrusters underneath those. So we're going to try a staged descent into orbit. I am feeling quietly confident
we have
with this
got
effort.
quite a lot of flames going on.
I
right
mean,
now.
that's all good, right? I mean, that's what a rocket should be doing.
It's getting a bit warm.
It's getting quite warm.
Are we going too quickly?
But we're about to jettison our solid rockets.
Oh,
dear!
explosion.
Did that take out one of our stages? So how's our clean insertion into orbit going now?
It's going fine. Look, we're still going. We're still going. Look,
Okay, tilt over.
were we getting a little ahead of ourselves? Sure,
Maybe.
Sure.
Maybe we walk, running before we can walk. So we took out half of the bottom half of our own rocket as we jettisoned our boosters.
It was
Always the danger of solid propellant.
155, 154.
perfect.
I'd like to
good.
say that's fairly spot on.
So if we were doing this for real, Abby, this would be exactly the process we'd go through to launch a satellite, launch a communication satellite or Sky TV
Yeah,
satellite or
probably
something.
you wouldn't be doing the orbital mechanics on the fly.
No,
We'd
this
have
would have been planned
that
in
beforehand.
advance with supercomputers and a bunch of clever people,
Yeah.
rather than us trying to wing it. So if we were going to do this for a mission to Mars,
Mm-hmm.
we would go through this process. We'd get something into low Earth orbit,
Yeah.
and it would stable. You kind of park it there.
Oops.
And then you could launch from. So how was that plan going there, Seb? With the waiting for the T's and
I
just got too keen again,
I
didn't
throttled
you?
up and then forgot to actually go.
What would you do next for a mission to Mars once you've got something into orbit?
So normally you want to transfer orbit, and that's a highly elliptical orbit. And then when you get to the highest point of that, you fire your rockets again, and you basically break free of Earth gravity.
So an adaptation of what we've just done.
Yeah,
You do something slightly more advanced. And not just get to low Earth orbit, but break free of Earth's gravity completely, and just hope you've thrown yourself in roughly the right direction.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you arrive at Mars's orbit when Mars wasn't there.
Yes.
And that would be embarrassing again.
Yep.
So not bad.
That
Look at that.
looks like it goes round the Earth.
I mean, it goes all the way
Not
around as
through
well.
It, yeah.
So here are highest and lowest points. Lowest is 122 kilometres and highest is 175 kilometres.
Not bad at all.
Not
Well done us.
It was close. We were close-ish. We brought the Science Junior. So if I open the doors, there we go, and observe the materials bay. The microgravity has greatly affected the growth of crystalline structures. Can you believe that?
Good stuff.
Loose objects are also flying around the bay. Very messy.
But fascinating way.
So we'll keep that experiment.
Good to know.
But what we can do is we can stage that off.
Leave our science in
look.
orbit.
And now the science is just going to be there forever. Good to know. And now what I have done is...
Oh, so we've got the heat shield this time.
We do.
We've thought this one through now.
That said, we are in orbit. And
How are we going to get down again, Seb?
just jettison our only rocket.
But Valentina's having a lovely time.
And we'll
So-
continue to have a lovely time for the next 60 minutes before auction runs out and she dies with an incredible
So
view.
I think our only option now is to do an EVA.
And let go.
Let go. So I think my best bet is probably just to head towards Earth.
And then just plummet through the atmosphere.
Point down.
Oh dear, this is
Oh,
pretty sad.
we're on our own independent orbit from the capsule.
She's now watching the sunrise. It's all beautiful.
So I think we can probably say
let's move on from there.
Let's leave her in space. She's a happy Kerbal.
So we've achieved low Earth orbit now.
Yes.
Who'd have thought?
Yeah.
And this would be the first step on a mission to Mars, wouldn't that be? You get a stable orbit in low Earth orbit, and then you fire your rocket again and start pointing yourself on the way to Mars. So tell me more about what you really do as a spacecraft structures engineer and what you're doing with Airbus and the ExoMars probe.
Okay, so ExoMars is going to be Europe's first rover mission to Mars, and I'm the structures engineer on that, which means that I'm in charge of the design of the actual body of the rover. All of the stuff to do with what the actual vehicle is and how that survives the launch, how it then survives the landing through Mars and the actual kind of impact of hitting the Martian surface. Mars and the Earth are both going around the Sun, obviously, at slightly different speeds and radii.
Different distances, yeah.
So you basically have to wait until Mars is coming past the Earth. So you're at the closest possible distance to Mars to make the hop over.
Yeah.
Because if you launched while it was the other side of the Sun, you could spend years and years trying to get towards it. So we have what we call a launch window.
Okay.
And that's when Mars is swinging past the Earth, and it's a relatively short hop over, maybe
And
6 to 9 months.
How often does that launch window come up?
Just over every 2 years, so 26 months. Every 26 months you get an opportunity to take a 6-month crossing to Mars. With ExoMars we want to land on the surface. So the way that we do that generally is actually you overshoot Mars. So you go in front of Mars and you wait for Mars to catch you up. And that way you can basically just fall into the atmosphere of Mars. You're both going really fast.
Okay. So you use the air of Mars itself to brake you, to slow you down.
And then you fall into effectively an orbit, but you just point yourself down and actually go through the atmosphere. That's what we're going to do.
And using parachutes like we've been seeing already in this game.
Yeah.
Because you approach Mars very, very quickly, don't you? So
Yes.
actually part of your problem is throwing away all of that speed.
Yeah,
to
getting
not
rid
hit
of
the
your
ground
speed.
kilometres a second.
So that's why you go in front of Mars, so that it catches you up, so that basically the two objects are both going through space really fast, so that the actual relative speed between them is quite small.
And we land on Mars, and now this is actually what you do. This is where Abbie Hutty steps in and says, "I've got this, guys. It's all right."
Abbie Kerbal.
Yes, actually. So what is it that you are doing in Airbus with the ExoMars rover?
Well, at the moment, we've just finished our CDR, which is Critical Design Review.
Okay.
So that means that it's been peer-reviewed, our whole design. Everyone's happy that we're going in the right direction, we're answering most of the big problems, but there's a few final things to sort out. And we're beginning to build hardware, so that's quite an exciting time. We've got all the bits and pieces coming in, we're bolting them together. We're about to do a whole bunch of testing.
You've got something physical to look at now. It's not just plans, it's not just designs and blueprints, it is bits of spacecraft
actual
that you
bits
have
of
in your
hardware.
office.
Yeah. So we're going to test it quite extensively before we launch it, because clearly we need to know that it's going to work. We do lots of thermal tests because the temperature extremes on Mars are huge. We do lots of vacuum tests and make sure that it's going to survive the fact that there's very little atmosphere on Mars. And we shake it really violently because the rocket launch and the landing as well, you get a massive vibration. Going through the spacecraft, so it's actually that shaking that we have to survive.
So you have big industrial wobble tables.
Yes,
in your
exactly.
in your workshops at Stevenage, and you've also got a Mars yard at Stevenage, haven't you? Tell us about that.
We have. It's quite good fun actually. It's basically a recreation of Mars in Stevenage, a big warehouse full of sand and rocks, and we can drive our rovers around in there and make sure that they're going to do what they should do on Mars. So that's all
you're
about
testing the wheels
navigation.
and suspension and the navigation systems.
Yeah, because Mars is such a long way away, it can take up to 26 minutes for the signal to reach Mars from Earth. So if you're driving by remote control, clearly that's really inefficient.
Yeah.
So we want to make our rover as smart as possible. It can drive itself around on the surface. So that's what we're developing with the Mars Yard, is all of the autonomy, all of the software, the control algorithms that are actually going to drive the rover around on the surface.
So it's not just the hardware, the nuts and bolts and the wheels and the chassis of the rover. You're making the kind of brain of the rover as well.
It's the
giving it the
software
software and the intelligence.
Okay, so that's our rocket. It's just cruising along on its way to Mars. Unfortunately, actually, if we were to zoom out, you can see...
So it's heading the right direction, at least.
Yes, we were heading out. Unfortunately, this is going to be a highest point about here. Not even quite Mars's orbit, and Mars will
be
well
nowhere
ahead
near
of
us
so,
in its orbit.
I mean, I'm going to say it was a valiant effort.
I think Mars won't even notice we were trying to get close to
Given a first go. I was hoping we would be able to wave it past as we went, but sadly no. But
turns out getting to Mars quite hard.
Yeah,
extremely difficult.
It is.
Yeah.
We've learnt that lesson.
Yes.
I think we can say that quite safely now.
Yes.
But thank you so much, Abby.
Yeah,
for
no
helping
worries.
us on that process.
Thank you. It's not the end of the video we have in plan for Abby. We, of course, have the Q&A session where we've got a bunch of your questions that you've been putting on Facebook and Twitter and in the YouTube comments. So we're going to field as many of those as we possibly can to you, hopefully with a greater success rate than our attempt at Mars.
Orbit, yeah.
But again, thank you very much for helping us out in Kerbal. I feel like we've achieved a lot. Not a Mars orbit, but still plenty. And Lewis, of course, thank you very much. We will see you guys in the Q&A video right up next.
To them.